Committee meeting. We're meeting in person and also on Zoom. So on Zoom, we have Seth Ferguson, Barney Overett, and Kurt Yagan. I want to take a minute to introduce our newest member, Seth Ferguson, representing the Board of Selectmen, ex officio. Welcome, Seth.
Thanks so much, Lorraine.
Looking forward to working with you. So we'll get started right away. First item on our agendas is the quarterly subcommittee updates. So rail trail, pedestrian, transit. Anyone to report on that?
We don't have much of an update. I think from a transit perspective, commuter rail did pick up a couple trips back at Patriot Place, Foxborough Station, and with the understanding that we're supposed to get better service in the fall. I think ridership is still down around 65%, so it's good that we're not doing the pilot yet. We don't want to start testing ridership when the ridership is so low. I was excited to see, I don't know if Tom, you noticed, since you're the one who told me about it, that it's now labeled the Franklin Foxborough line. So that to me seems like a rather positive, label. So we'll see what happens in the fall, but that's, stay tuned as we all hopefully continue to recover from COVID. We'll start to see that. I know traffic has gotten horrendous again. So many people are riding and in their cars alone again. So hopefully with that, will become more ridership. I know Mansfield still has parking spaces available.
Okay.
Plenty, yeah. So that to me is a little bit of a benchmark. You used to not be able to get near Mansfield, and you still can. So we're still not back to pre-COVID levels. On the rail trail, things have been kind of quiet. Catherine, we did, I think, have a meeting a couple months ago and sort of talked.
End of May.
In May, okay. That's right, Tom. Sorry, you're on it too. That was it? A couple months ago was the end of May? Okay, 1 month ago. It's been a long month, apparently. So, Tom, do you want to give us an update? Because I vaguely recall what we talked about. It was really just...
We talked about, there was a lot of tight points as far as going from Walpole to Mansfield. Issues with dimensions, wide enough paths, the city or the MBTA or whoever owns the lines not wanting traffic by the tracks. So there's some obstacles we have to go through. I don't know what the next step was, if we were meeting with them again.
I think so. I think because we had been told by the state that we'd be crazy to apply for a grant for the design, because that's such a small thing. So if we got like 30 or 40,000 for the design, chances are we wouldn't get funded for construction. So the advice was sort of to keep an eye on other funding sources, find a way to self-fund it. And I think the craft group has been sort of, through their consultant, working with this. But I think we got a little bit of a reality check at that last meeting. Because we also know that while they're saying, MBTA is sort of saying they'll allow us to do it, we're not sure that they really will allow us to do it.
Yeah, and then we were looking at alternative paths, which was bringing us out onto main streets up through the center of town.
Yeah.
It didn't really feel like a rail trail path, if you're riding your bike or walking,
So it's someone from the MBTA who you're meeting with, or just having conversations?
No.
It was the engineering group.
Oh, the engineering group.
VHB,
Okay.
and they have close connections with, they work closely with MBTA, so it's kind of like, the MBTA is considering it, but I think the actual head of railroad operations is a heavy, doesn't want people near his tracks for obvious reasons. So I think it's that balancing act, are we being realistic, and how do we figure out this? And the reason we're looking at connecting a little bit more is because we were also told that if this was tied into a regional network, we'd have a better chance of getting funding, whereas if it's just really Patriot Place to Uptown, that's a segment that benefits a very small population.
Because
So-
originally we were thinking to start small like that.
Yeah.
But then they told us you're better off to just shoot for the whole thing.
Yeah. So that's pretty much where we are. It's not really moving quickly, but I think, fortunately we are looking at it, and we'll continue on to try to keep it. It's not a dead proposition, but it certainly has its challenges.
Yeah, and I think there's still other towns that are still going through and doing these type of things right now, so maybe the momentum will help.
Great. Thank you. Route 1, so Neither Dan nor Mike Sager are present, so we'll skip that.
Yeah, I think we'll hold off. I don't think much is going on out there. I mean, they're getting ready for, another season of events and whatnot, but for future business development, we're not really hearing much about, projects coming up along Route 1.
Okay. All right, business development. So Paige has provided us with a packet of information from Penta Marketing, and this is the group that did the bulk of the work for Mansfield with their branding project. So Paige, do you want to go through this a bit? It was really interesting
Yeah.
what they can offer in terms of assistance to us,
Sure.
Yeah.
So, we've noticed about a year or so ago that suddenly, literally Mansfield was on the map. I don't know if you went on social media or whatnot, but Discover Mansfield seemed to show up everywhere. We learned from them that they did get a grant, or they used some grant funding from, I don't know which program they used, but they allocated money towards marketing. I did get a hold of the company, Penta Marketing out of Westboro, and spoke to the owner, and she suggested that, she said that she would be excited to work with the town, talked about redoing the website, developing a marketing campaign, creating a brand, assisting with social media presence, offering general consulting. She did note that they have an in-house design team that can assist with, so they would be, I believe, doing the ones that do brand and graphics and whatnot. Sometimes, like on the regional marketing plan I'm doing, it's sort of more coordination by the marketing team, and they hire the artists to do the branding, and, it's a little more different pieces. Unfortunately, the estimate she gave for that full service package was $65,000 to $95,000, obviously a little bit more than any of us were even contemplating. I mentioned
More
that.
than we have in our fund.
Yeah, we have about 30,000 in the Economic Development Fund that is managed by, it's funded through liquor license fees, and it's overseen by the Board of Selectmen. So I knew we had about 30,000, so I said, could they offer a reduced scope based on that? And she said, of course, absolutely. And she would meet with, the people that wanted to meet, town manager, me, and others, put a plan together and recommend where to start. She noted that, because I mentioned that I know there's a gentleman named Chris who was recently hired over in Mansfield to run their economic development program, and she said, well, that's actually was a recommendation we made, so they actually hired someone based on that. So that's something we certainly could look at and explore that opportunity. And then since I'm working, so just to back up, you heard me talk about this regional destination marketing effort. So we first did a plan, and then we got a website up and running. And then now we've gotten $200,000 more in grants. So we're working with Mass Office of Travel and Tourism, and this past week we have to get everything done by June. For $80,000 of the grant, everything had to be done by June 30th. So we have commercials being shot and photos and print ads taken. So we'll see where that goes. And then
Is that the site with the other towns?
yes, so it's at fpw.com or visit fpw.com, I believe it is. So knowing that I've been working with Open the Door Consulting has been helping us with that, this woman named Chris Pappas, I asked her to put together a proposal as well. And you've also got a copy of her proposal. And as I mentioned, that one is a little more segmented. I mean, she doesn't do the in-house design. She is able to sort of direct you and manage herself the effort, but it's a little more segmented. But she has a tremendous amount of experience, and we've had a lot of luck so far, as you can see, with the funding we've been getting. So she did take a look at the Mansfield branding and whatnot, and she said it should provide an experienced point of contact to facilitate, do status reports, track budgets, attend meetings, and development and implementation of measurement tools. She estimated branding would be $11,500, and then website art, direction, and copywriting, $8,500, and then went on to offer some more a la carte services. So obviously, there's a big range, and I'm sure Penta too, could. I was asking about Mansfield, so that's what she was responding to. But it does look like there's an opportunity. I know one of the big things we talked about first is branding. But I know Heather and I, when we get to it, would also say this EDC website, which we'll get to that. But, we could use assistance with that. It is not working literally right now, and it's also not doing anything. It's sitting on the web. We don't have any active management of it. So I would identify, a branding and sort of a better social media website presence as the first priorities, if the town were to
That's
pursue
what
something.
grabbed my eye too right away, seeing that she could offer that type of service.
Yeah.
Even the monthly website maintenance.
Yeah, so that might be something, I don't know if, I know Lorraine, you've been thinking about, I know the administration has been concerned about that we don't necessarily have like a strong presence out there, and so.
The last time when we met with Bill Keegan, and we talked about this is like the first real example of some possibilities, that we could bring back to him to suggest that we can go in front of the Board of Selectmen and ask if they would be willing to support using some of the economic development funds for this type of approach. So this might be a good way to get the ball rolling with that.
Paige, do you remember, we had several meetings with the gentleman with the accent? Remember?
The website, yep.
Yeah. So how would that fit into, does he just do the website? That's all they do?
He doesn't do our website.
No, but I
He
mean-
does data, so it would be like a link on our website, and it was
Okay.
really cool data, but they offer like a tool that you'd add it to our website
Okay.
as a,
Because
and
we
it'd be a
really
data
liked
point.
him, remember, but that's all they do, right? Is
Yeah.
just the website, so we need more of a package.
Yeah, we need help with the website itself, whether it's the
Right.
current one and making it dynamic and current, or whether it's redoing it. I don't, that's for an expert to tell us what they advise. Like I said, we were surprised today to learn that our EDC website is having technical difficulties. So I need to put a ticket in on that and figure out what's going on there. So it's not even, like, if someone searched us,
Yeah, you can't
they're
get
gonna,
to
it's
it.
not even there.
Does Foxborough have a IT department?
They do, But this one was a little more of an offshoot. It's not necessarily, it is under it, and it's certainly, they're the people I will have to get in touch with, but we had an intern prepare that, again, under the umbrella of the town's IT/website, but it's not necessarily the town
Oh, no, it's that
website.
somebody changes one thing and then,
That's it.
I don't think anybody's been, the only thing is, I don't think anybody's been in there.
Just us.
Yeah.
well, not
That's-
necessarily,
we haven't even
not
been in
necessarily
there.
our site, but
Right.
someplace else that
Yeah.
links to that, you know? and-
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I don't know what condition it's in and what happened, and I know my computer is different now, I can't Google things the same way, so I don't know if it's like security settings or what's going on.
I couldn't get to it either, though. And you know what? It's not a very good website. I mean, we try our best, but we are not website
Yeah,
people.
no, and I'm afraid to do anything, because again, I was told if you touch this front page, you can make the whole thing disappear, so I'm in fear of making the whole,
Always like-
as bad as it is, at least
I
it's
know,
something.
right.
So.
Paige, can I make a suggestion about the website going forward? And it's just, I'm reminded of something that happened to our company a couple of years ago. We were kind of going through, similar to what you had. We had a website that was our billboard. We had our images on there, we had our information on there, but it wasn't really getting to anybody of substance. It wasn't getting out there. Long story short, in the last 2.5 years, we've probably tripled our volume of business by building a website that is compatible with a HubSpot environment, which is what we've been using. Because if you just take a look at what HubSpot is, it's a place where you can go and have a website that is, say HubSpot compatible. And not only does it use algorithms to get your information out in front of the right people, it collects an enormous amount of data and analytics. So you can adjust your messages, you can adjust where you're advertising. It's real-time data. It's relatively inexpensive. And it's helped us in so many ways. We can manage all of those things internally now. Once we have that platform created, that was created by somebody who knew how to build a website that could be linked up to HubSpot. So I would suggest checking that out because it's helped us immensely.
That's great input.
And some sites, they're not compatible for phones, it's just like computer, and it's better if you can just, because most people are using their phones now versus a computer when they're looking things up. So if it's compatible.
And that's the kind of analytics you can get. We can now see, like, where people are coming from. We can see when they're opening our emails. I mean, the data is incredible. So, and it's a modest monthly fee for this information, and it provides you and anyone you want to have access to with all of that analytical data. And it can allow you to adjust your strategies based on what's working and what's not working, and really allow you to get your name out there. It also has tools for enhancing your social media presence and, all that kind of stuff. I mean, you met Brian from my office a while ago. He'd do a better job explaining all this to you in a technical sense. But I'd just Google HubSpot and have a look at all the things it can do. It's pretty impressive.
Thanks, Kurt.
That's great. So I would recommend that one of the ideas we could do is maybe put out a little quick request for quotes for developing a brand, and I'm very open to input on this, and then improving our website's presence, and then, perhaps calling out the HubSpot concept, or if they have a different recommendation, why. And then, get from Penta, from Open the Door, and at least from one other consultant, because we would need three quotes, and then take a look at those, and then also maybe add in the data that the gentleman we talked to who offered some data, because we could get a great website, but what do we have on there? Like, you want something dynamic, and you need information. Like, one thing we're really missing, and it would be helpful for this group to work on, is like, an inventory. Like, when I get those emails of, do we have, a site that has this or a building that has that, we don't necessarily have that at our fingertips. And I think that's something that website might help with, but we might need to make that a little bit of a project. So I think with those types of information, we could come up with like mini proposals, decide amongst this group what we like, and then maybe take them to the Board of Selectmen to discuss, action on it. That might be.
Didn't we start one time just going through all the businesses? Didn't we do that? Didn't we do that?
I still have it. Yeah, we
have a
update it
list.
all the time. But that's operating
Yeah, it's operating, yeah,
businesses,
it's not
not like,
what's
sometimes,
available, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, do you have a warehouse or do you have we don't have that.
You could probably work with a broker or
Yeah,
somebody,
I'm
a
sure
local broker.
Yeah, and I don't think Foxborough has a ton of land or buildings that are available. Catherine would know best,
There are not.
But at least to know what we have. So if I'm always getting emails or calls, and I'm like, I don't, I go on LoopNet, anyone can do that. So it's like to have a little bit of better sense. Norton had a good handle on that, and they use that data, the tool. So maybe that would be something that we could have. And at least then that way, if people are going to our website, they can do the search themselves, and then they follow up with us as needed. But in the meantime, we also have, active marketing. Again, maybe we need to figure out what we are marketing. I mean, there's not a lot, but there's something, so.
Makes sense.
So then with branding eventually identified, that could help with the whole business guide
Yes,
design and everything.
yes.
There is an intern starting this summer, right?
Yes.
Did he start?
He did yesterday. He comes to me tomorrow morning. So he's a high school student that worked on senior project through here, and, he took some interest. He's doing 19 hours a week. I'm only getting him for a couple hours at a time. I know, right? No, but I had Matt a lot more. So he's available, and he's going to take a step. I guess he's really good at graphics. So for now, maybe have him take a look at the business guide, at least start getting some information. He'll also be working with like the Board of Health. So I could send him to Matt over in the Board of Health and start, because one of the hard parts of the business guide is let alone the graphics, it's the processes. So, and they need to be specific to Foxborough, and that's where it breaks down. And everybody's so busy. So to actually have someone who's working with Matt, who could be like Matt Brennan, the Board of Health Director, to be like, okay, if someone wants to, because I started to like, if you want to open a restaurant, how do you do it? It is so hard to distill that down into a simple checklist, but it can be done. It's just very nuanced. So I'm hoping, it's not Teddy's expertise per se, but he seems like very willing and interested. So figure we have nothing to lose to give it a shot. If worst comes to worst, I'll put them on an inventory of land. But, you know, trying to at least tackle some of these projects that have been sitting around to get them going. So, but I think branding is key, you know, for getting something like Discover Mansfield, something like that. You know, they chose, their website is called Choose Mansfield, and ours was first.
It was,
So,
it was.
Choose us instead.
yes. Discover
Choose
Foxborough
we're
first.
better.
Something like that, but.
Barney, Kurt, or Seth, any comments or questions?
The only, I mean, I love the idea, and I'm only asking this because I'd love to be able to, you know, brainstorm this out further at some point. But what are you seeing as, I mean, beyond the obvious thing of, you know, the Patriots and that, like what are we seeing as the draw? Like, what's the message? What's the story we're going to tell to get people to come here?
Good question.
I will say I've done a municipal branding exercise in the past, and we brought in consultants and they did focus groups. They asked that question. They asked what's unique about your municipality, and they,
Right.
you know, made sure they got a diverse sampling of the folks of the business community, families, folks who are new to town, folks who have been here forever, and some of them came up with single word answers, and you start to see patterns repeat, and that really brings authenticity to whatever you're doing. So I don't know if any of the folks we're looking at would do something similar. I'm guessing they would. Sometimes they'll do surveys, basically getting at that. But you don't want to just have a couple folks sit around and come up with what they think. I think when you do sort of the widespread community input on what the strengths are, you can get to a good result. So I think that would be one way to do it.
I think it's a good idea. And I'll say straw hats. I'll just put that out there.
Thank you. Anything else, Paige?
No, I think on that,
We're good?
no.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, could I ask a question, Lorraine?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm looking at Discover Mansfield, and they spent, what, I don't remember, $60,000 to $90,000. Do we know what the return was on that investment or how they measure it? And then if we spend $30,000 worth of Discover Foxborough, and I understand these are very basic questions, I'm just trying to catch up quickly here. What do we expect? What is the return there? And so if I think about, you know, I feel like there's the commercial aspect of it, trying to make people understand that Foxborough is business friendly. And then there's sort of the residential aspect. I mean, people already know and want to live in Foxborough, so that's probably, we don't have to put too much money towards that. So I'm just trying to understand the investment and expected return.
So I think probably it starts with the whole inventory thought, you know, of if, once we see what we've got, I mean, getting that information out, there are questions coming in often asking about, you know, what is available for development in the town. So getting that organized and being able to answer that is really step number one. I think on Route 1, you know, we've always talked about that as being the focus of major development. So that's another aspect. But then also in the future, potentially what's going to happen in the center of town with what may happen with the Foxborough Schneider Electric, and those changes that may happen in the future. So that's a major change, I think, in the center of town that needs to be considered. So.
Okay.
But I think back to the analytics, Seth, I think what I could do is reach out to Mansfield and ask them sort of whether they've, you know, what the return on their investment has been, what they've seen by way of change in level of interest, both residential and commercial, and just see, I'm sure as part of the marketing scope, they have to provide that data and sort of show some of that, so I could certainly ask them, you know, what they're experiencing as a result of that campaign, and if it's changed the community, and if they've seen actual financial benefits, the tangible benefits.
I'm sure somewhere in there it says, how did you hear about us, right?
Right.
It's like, oh, the website or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, one of, oh.
That makes sense. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Seth, one of the things that we were kind of focusing on from an economic development standpoint was just like you said, we already have people here because they're here, and we already have some businesses here. But you'd be amazed at how many people didn't know what those businesses were. So like when we did the Shop Local promo during COVID, there were so many people that were like, I had never been to Ferristein's, I didn't know what it was, I had never been to, and they live here. So, you know, part of, I think, what we were hoping was that it will get the people that live here in town to understand what we have to offer and to shop local and stay local, and maybe get people from Mansfield and Plainville and stuff too to come here.
That makes a ton of sense, Heather. Thank you for that. Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Website content, so I think,
Technical difficulties, apparently. We don't know where our content went, so we will, I have a note to myself to find out, put in a ticket.
and then Uptown, FCBC.
All right. You want me to do that? Okay. So this has pretty much been Leah, Paige, and I. So Seth, now that you've replaced Leah, we would welcome you to join our little group if you want, especially given where you live.
Yeah. That sounds good to me, Heather.
You have a vested interest. So this is some of the stuff we've been working on. We worked with the Founders Day group with our list of businesses, just to make sure that, because it's been a couple years and there were maybe some new businesses and stuff, that all the businesses got reached out to and knew what was going on and, you know, that kind of thing. We've been attending the monthly Foxborough Common Business Collaborative meetings, and the focus of that group in the last few months has really been Founders Day, the car show that is coming up in July that's going to be all dispersed around Uptown, trash removal specifically for the Uptown businesses, new business promotions and ribbon cutting. And in fact, we have a ribbon cutting this Thursday, so tomorrow at 5 o'clock for the bakery. Her grand opening is Sunday, but she's doing kind of a soft opening, and we're doing a ribbon cutting tomorrow at 5. So we've been working on that. Paige has really been focusing on parking Uptown, especially the Schneider lot, which we're now referring to as the Uptown Schneider lot, to make people realize that it really is centrally located, and also the Bach lot, which we now know is technically named the Veteran Central Street parking lot, out behind the businesses. So we're working on that. We've been reaching out to new businesses like the bakery and Sal and Mal's to see when they're going to be open, you know, give them information, how can we help them. We did meet with some of the Uptown stakeholders to talk about the Veteran Central Street parking lot, and Paige got a $50,000 grant, right?
Well, sort of. It hasn't been signed by the governor.
Okay, but in
So,
theory, we're
In
going to get
theory, we have 50,000.
right,
yes.
that we can spend to kind of beautify that lot up there in the back. We toured Uptown with Auchincloss's aid and some staffers, just kind of show off our town and get us a little PR. We added 3 more flower buckets to the flower bucket program, so now we're up to, I think, 30 flower buckets all Uptown that are adopted. We did discuss with Chris Gallagher some improvements that we can make to that Uptown Schneider lot, you know, cut down the brush, add a couple of flower buckets down there, maybe a bench and some solar lighting, just so that we talked about that, not that anybody's afraid, we're not a high crime area, but, you know, if you're walking from the Orpheum down to that lot alone on a, you know, rainy night and it's dark, it would be kind of nice to be able to have some additional lighting on the way, and so that you can see where you're going and just.
And we're going to add
spruce it up
a better sign from Bird Street. 'Cause
Yes.
It's like kind of, only if you're coming from Railroad are you going to be directed, otherwise you would never know it's across the tracks.
Right.
Right. So just on that point, I was just looking out our front door earlier, and people are struggling to find parking. They're parking in the driveway out front here. They're parking in Sober Camel, which is private property. They don't know where to go, and they really there's 50 spots or whatever, 35,
41.
30 yards down the road, and either they don't want to go there or they don't know exactly where they are. But it's funny to watch and funny funny sad, I guess, but.
I
So I know
know.
there's opportunity, so we're working on it, so that's great.
Yeah, that's kind of been a focus, was like, we know it's there, but how do we get everybody else to know that it's there and how to get there and that it's safe, So that's kind of been a focus. We also we attended a Foxborough stakeholders meeting, which was actually really good. It got all of the different groups together, like the JCs and the Selectmen and Recreation and Foxborough Common Business Collaborative and DPW, everybody that does things around town, so that we're all on the same page, so that Chris Gallagher knows he shouldn't rip up the Common the Thursday before the JC's vendor fair, and people that are interested in the car show can help out Amy. And we created, and I'm gonna mess this up, but is it a Google Drive or a calendar that we all can access, so we can go on there and see when events are and, run ideas by each other and that kind of thing. Because there's so many different volunteer groups that do so much in this town, between the Lions and that we all kind of wanted to get on the same page, so that one hand knows what the other hand is doing. So that's been working pretty well. People throw ideas out there and what they're doing and how they can help and that kind of thing. We've been trying to maintain and build upon the Uptown Happenings page and, get it out there to people, because not that many people visit the town's Facebook page. I just think they probably, I don't know, maybe think it isn't that interesting or whatever. So we've been kind of trying to push stuff to that page so that people will see that. And the last thing we were doing was sharing and pushing out the sidewalk survey to aid the planning department. So I don't know if
DPW.
Oh, DPW, sorry, not you. No. Sorry. Because that was a hot topic at the last town meeting, so people felt very strongly one way or another about their sidewalks, so there is a survey out there so that we could get some data for them. So I think that's about it, right?
Yeah,
I feel like we've been busy at that, but
yeah. And then ties into the next thing is Shoveltown. That's kind of we have a lot of excitement going on uptown with that coming in. Like every project out there, it's been delayed. There's been material delays, there's waiting for National Grid delays, so it is what it is. But they were just in front of the selectmen last night and got their pouring license and their common vic, and I believe their entertainment license, Seth. I think so they're ready to go once they're ready to go. I believe they're saying around September right now. I know it's not soon enough for them, and I know there's a lot of people waiting, but that will be coming soon. And as you might have noticed, we also have the Wall Street project underway next to the post office. That's moving along quickly. There is a retail component to that. Originally a daycare, the planning board approved a daycare for that front site, but unfortunately the daycare, it fell apart. So the deal fell apart. So now,
Oh, really?
yeah. So,
That was quite a meeting. too.
yeah, that was another meeting. So we'll stay tuned to see what's there. I mean, I think it's hard to fill space, although Uptown Foxborough's got a really low vacancy rate, so maybe it won't be that hard. But that project's moving along, and last I had heard, he had hoped to open in the fall. Again, with delays, I'm not sure that's where he's at, but, that will bring more people uptown. And I think that's why we're starting to see things like Shoveltown and the bakery,
What's the name of the bakery?
Sweetness and Honey.
Oh, hope it does well, because remember when we first started this whole thing with Shoveltown, and everyone was like, we need a bakery, we want a bakery.
Exactly.
And they went, now you have a bakery, you better go.
Exactly.
I think she will, because she's already in business working out of her house. She's got quite a following, you place your order, you go pick it up type of thing. So this is her first brick and mortar, but she's already kind of established with a lot of people, so
good.
hopefully, I know.
Have you heard any updates on the Sal and Mal's replacement business? That was
No.
supposed to be a Vietnamese
Vietnamese.
restaurant. Oh, and that Vietnamese is so delicious. So I haven't heard anything.
No, I went by and there was no one in there working or anything, so I've been trying, but I haven't heard any more. I did check with Leah, she hasn't either.
Okay.
You guys haven't heard anything, have you, Seth? Like nothing from Sal and Mal's has made it across your desk?
No, not since they first came through and were approved.
Okay.
But this is a second or maybe third location.
Yep.
So we know where they are. If we wanted to reach out to them, we certainly could check in.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we should do
Maybe we
that.
should, just 'cause we're
Yeah.
all
I know
curious.
it was a police officer who attracted him to town. Like, I think he visited one of their locations and said and his parents, I think, own, so I don't know if anybody knows that police officer too. Maybe he has an idea, but we could always call on the application.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have contact info, because I've been really excited for the Vietnamese restaurant to be a lunch spot, so I have selfish interest, let alone be a nice addition to Uptown. So anyway, Uptown is kind of busy, and again, we are dealing with some issues at the, the Central Street Veterans Lot, the multiple dumpsters and locations of dumpsters. It's still, that's a problem we're grappling with right now. So we do hope to work, Jay Barrows hopes to go walk around, and we're trying to figure out a way if we can get businesses to coordinate, and maybe we could designate areas for dumpsters or have shared services. That obviously requires some coordination, and obviously someone with a lower use and only walks out there once or twice a week might have a different perspective than someone who's going out there at, 12 or 1 in the morning and every night, so we understand that, but we do think there are ways to perhaps improve the efficiency back there. Ever since we put up wayfinding signs, we're finding it's really busy back there. Like, there's not a lot of spaces. So it would behoove us to make sure that it's done as well as possible. And then if the $50,000 comes through, we have some sort of exciting creative ideas for, that would require vetting and discussions, but, there's some possibility of creating some great spaces. We've seen images of like the alleyway that is kind of dangerous for vehicles, whether we could turn that into outdoor seating with lighting and whatnot, and sort of create more places for people to grab like a bagel or grab, a sandwich and then go sit down and, see people. So we'll see. It's kind of like fun planning stuff, and I don't know how the businesses around there will feel about it, but, that's part of the discussion that has to come up.
We want a mural.
Yeah, we
really
do.
want a mural. Everybody's getting one. I think we need one.
Everybody's getting, Mansfield has one.
Everybody's got, exactly.
Do they have
I
one?
don't know.
Yes, they have a couple big murals.
Do they?
Yes.
Oh, well, they got the one by the train station.
Yes.
Under the
Yes.
bridge. yeah.
Everybody's getting them.
That took them years to do.
And there's been talk about creating a cultural council,
Yeah.
a cultural district, and so that's kind of stalled out. I think everybody's been really busy, but that's, the cultural commission's been working on that. So I think that would also help get funding for things like murals. So, yeah, there's a lot of action uptown, and I think, with the lighting at the Common and whatnot, it's going to be, in the theater and Shoveltown and Sam's and everything, it's good.
Coming along.
Do you want me to go on the other pending project, just to keep things moving? So I only brought this up because, we always talk about Route 1, and that's an area of future development. And just so you know, the planning board has a public hearing tomorrow night on 2 Washington Street. It's a just under 225,000 square foot warehouse. And it's located where Funway Cafe, former Christina's, Dimitri's, whatever, however people know it as. So that's being proposed, and the hearing is tomorrow night. It's actually at the high school. We had quite a turnout at the first meeting, and actually didn't end up opening it. So this hearing is scheduled for 7:30 at the high school tomorrow night. It will be on cable, but it will not be on Zoom, because when you move to the high school, we're not able to do it. So if anybody wants to speak about it, but it is, a warehouse use, it is going to be reviewed by the planning board. They've not seen the public hearing, the presentation yet at all, but, there is considerable, I will say, in full disclosure, there's considerable resident concern around this project, which surprised me in a way, just because it's Route 1, but then, the folks behind there, and then even Beach Street and North Street and those areas, we're seeing some real concern about 24-hour operations, traffic, pollution, noise. So just a heads up that's coming up.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item on the agenda, next steps for EDC, future focus. So we wanted to have a general discussion about, moving forward, any specific areas of interest or focus that members might want to discuss.
Should we relook at, remember that huge sheet we did of all the different possible projects
The matrix.
a few years ago? Should we pull that out
We could
again
send
and
that
relook
out,
at it?
yeah.
Look at it?
Yep. Let me start with that.
I would love to try, I don't know how to do it, but Catherine probably does. I'd love to try to do a restaurant week.
That's interesting.
Wouldn't it? Like,
Yeah.
I don't really know how we would do it, but I've gone to restaurant weeks in a lot of other places, Newport and stuff, and, most of the restaurants take part in it, and they all offer something, a drink, or an appetizer, or a prefix menu. I mean, it would be a little bit of legwork to pull them all together,
Yeah.
but if we could get Patriot Place on board, you know, that, and
Yeah,
then.
that covers a lot, right? A
Right,
lot of
but then
restaurants.
I'd love to add, I mean, we have some really good restaurants here now, because we'd have My Pearl, Union Straw, Shoveltown,
Conrad's.
Banana, but it's not.
Conrad's.
It brings
Rally
people, you
Point.
go to restaurants you wouldn't usually go to.
Well, that's what I'm thinking,
Because
if
used to
there's
do that
a,
in Boston, right? So it'd be, if it was like 1998, everything on the menu was $19.98.
something,
or
right?
something.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a little, we thought that shop local promo was gonna kill us, but it didn't. I mean, we got it done. So, I don't know, I just thought it might be kind of fun. So that's something I'd like to think about.
I like it.
Any other ideas, thoughts?
I do think like sometimes I have EDC envy, and no shade on you, but it's like I see like other communities, and I don't know whether it's they don't have staff or what, but they're, you know, I feel like the group could be doing more, and maybe that's the type of thing, but you know, there could be more purpose to the group, and I don't know exactly how or what, whether it's doing, you know, assisting with the inventory, and I know everybody has day jobs, so it's hard, but I do feel like, you know, it would be helpful to sort of maybe have projects that people could do if the group is interested in it. You know, otherwise, I'm glad to do, you know, the bulk of it, but I don't necessarily need meetings to do that, you know what I mean? Like, that's, I'm doing that, so it's just like, is there any pet projects like Restaurant Week or inventory stuff or whatever that could,
That
people
kind of
could dig
stuff-
in and have fun with?
Right, that kind of stuff's on the matrix, right? So maybe if we dug that out and looked at it, we could pick one or two a year to focus on or something, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, because it had projects that we were working on, projects we had completed, things that we were looking at.
Right, right.
There were some ideas on there, which, you
Right.
know, you could add
Yeah.
your
Okay.
idea there.
We can circulate that and then maybe direct
Yeah,
any
you go through,
suggestions.
refine, you know,
Yeah, direct suggestions to Paige and
Yeah.
and recompile.
Paige, I had mentioned a while ago, if you need an updated drone flight of the downtown area, I could be happy to do that for you pro bono.
That'd be great. That'd be great. I mean, I think that could be something that would be on the website, and it would definitely be on our tourism website.
Right.
I don't necessarily know what to do with it, but the good thing is on the tourism website, we have someone who knows what to do with it. So I think it would be a great tool and something that not every other, that other communities like Mansfield wouldn't have.
That's right.
So it would be our own specialty. So I would love to coordinate that with you.
Okay.
Be great.
We could make ours fly to Foxborough instead of discover
right.
Foxborough.
Yeah.
And Mansfield has an airport too, and they don't have a drone flight. Shame on them.
Right.
Yeah. Catherine, have you seen, like, from your experience in, like, economic development and economic development committees, like, what roles do you see an EDC playing as opposed to staff? And, you know, is there,
Yeah, you know, that's interesting because I do agree that there's a range, and I do sometimes actually read meeting minutes just as part of my day job, so I do see them running the gamut. Some of them almost seem to take on more planning board-like functions, which I'm not suggesting, but just, you know, telling you it's out there, whereby they're engaging on specific project proposals and offering comments as to whether it makes sense for the community or whether it aligns with their overall strategy. So you have that approach. I do see a lot of guest presenters coming in, which we had started to do a little bit. And certainly we could continue doing that. I see them looking for funding. There are a few things, and that's actually something I could probably easily look more into and just come up with categories of things they seem to be doing that maybe we haven't done yet.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Any other comments, suggestions?
The only other thing Paige and I were talking about, and Catherine, you probably know this too, but when I was kind of looking around, I found the Mass Economic Development Council, which is kind of like an association that economic development committees can join. Did you find out we aren't members,
we're not
right?
members, no, and it would be $400.
They wouldn't let us just do one person? Oh.
I don't think so.
See, an individual member is only $90, so I thought maybe we could have one of us join and report back to the group.
I mean, I'm sure you could join, you know, as an
Yeah.
individual and maybe not write Town of Foxborough on
Right.
it, but, you know, as the Foxborough EDC,
Right.
they have an agency charge.
Okay,
So, And
I just don't know. Do you have any experience with that, Catherine? Like, I don't,
Just a little bit. I have gone to some of their events in the past. I was never a member, but if I remember correctly, they would do sort of, like morning sessions around the state that have guest speakers. There'd be a theme either by industry or,
Okay.
some overarching theme. I thought they were well put together. They were usually, the ones I attended were maybe 50 people. So I didn't really get experience with what the organization itself provided to members, but I did see them as sort of an educational and networking opportunity. And I will say you had to pay per event. You couldn't
if you're
just-
not members or even if
I
you
think even
are?
if you were a member.
yeah,
you
it's
had to
like
pay something.
$20 for members and like $30 for
Oh, for-
non-members. So there
okay.
is a fee that goes with it at times.
So maybe I'll kind of continue to monitor that and see if it's something that we might think we'd get
Yeah.
some benefit out of. I don't know. It's just something I kind of came across.
I mean, there are a few that come through, that I have been interested in, and, oftentimes I'm like, I don't do it just because I'm not a member, and
Right.
so it might be beneficial to be member, but,
Yeah, I
Can
just-
non-members go, and then you could,
you can
so if
actually.
you, and then you could just, well, thinking work-wise.
Yeah.
You know, just expensive.
There you go, we nominate you.
I did look at it just quickly, and I saw they had, like, they offered what they called a site readiness program, which I thought, that kind of sounds like what we were talking about inventory-wise,
Right,
what's out there.
right.
So I thought that might be interesting.
I don't think they do it, I think it might get you on their list. I don't think they'll unfortunately do the homework for us, but I think that we could be on their site, like, maybe there's a checklist or something that we could then be included on their list.
The information
I
to them.
think so, I could be, but I feel like it's more that, it's like you end up on it, and then that way, but you do get the first look then, if you're on the list, and as opposed to folks that aren't on the list, I feel like that might be more what it is.
I mean, it's a few $100s a year, and I know we don't have a budget, but I know that the town does have a budget for, I don't know what they call it, but,
Professional
development
Yeah.
or whatever. So I know the budget's done for this year, but maybe in the future, it's only a few $100s. If we look into it more and we think it might be worth it, maybe we could convince.
It might be something I could carry under the planning thing. My title now does include economic development, so we could maybe carry it under the planning budget even this year if need be, if
I
it's
just
something
know-
we really wanted to
Yeah.
do.
I mean, we're a member of the Mass Park and Rec Association, which is the same kind of concept, but we get a lot of benefit out of that, because you can throw questions out there, and we steal ideas from other places, and I mean, that really benefits us. So I don't know if this would or not, but it's something that's worth looking into.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Can you get on a mailing list, like an emailing list? Because I'm part
Maybe.
of CoreNet, which is a corporate real estate, and then IFMA, which is facilities management stuff, and you just sign up for stuff. And they'll send you, next week in Somerville or in Boston, we're doing a meetup, and this is the topic. And then if you're a member, you could go for
Oh, I get
free.
that list. I can forward that to everyone. I get every
Yeah, then
email.
There might be something there
yeah.
that interests us, and we just go to that one, pay
Right,
whatever it is to
right.
go, and then.
I mean, the agency rate she quoted was 6+ members, and that's $400, but then again, looking at it, it looks like with 2 to 5 members, like, I can't imagine we'd ever have any more than
Couple of
two
us
if
go,
so, or 3 or 4, so we might even be able to slide in under the $175 rate. So if that were something. And then NEDA, I assume that's the National Economic Development Dues, that's optional. I think we'd hold off on that, and then, but, yeah.
Yeah.
So it might be something we want to look into.
Great.
It would make me happy, because every time I look at it, I'm like, we're not a member. Because every so often it is free, and,
Yeah.
especially with Zoom, you can get on, but if you're not a member, you can't, so.
That's all we have on the agenda, so any,
Did you want to talk about length of EDC terms?
I think it's
yeah.
Supreme Court type thing.
it's for life.
Paige, before we get to that, if I could just, it's not so much a question, it's just what I'm thinking about as far as the direction for the Economic Development Committee. So I'm just thinking about what the mission is, and if not the mission, the goals of the Economic Development Committee. And in terms of how do we understand what the community's looking for? And then what does that mean short-term to long-term? So if we're looking, what type of growth, fast growth versus slow growth, or residential versus commercial, and then, manufacturing versus retail, all these types of questions. And just like an example with the Schneider location, what do we think about could happen there? And just what do we expect? What does the town want to happen there? So those types of things, in as much as we can understand what the town is looking for and help facilitate that type of development, that's the type of stuff that I'm trying to understand and think about.
That's great.
How do we figure that out?
We could go back and look at some of the surveys we've done. We have
the
surveys,
master plan.
I mean, we're getting ready to redo that master plan, right?
Are we?
Well,
I gotta go. I gotta
Have
go.
to. We're coming
Yeah,
up
it's
on
coming
10
up.
years.
It is coming up
So
on 10 years.
and we have a lot of recent surveys we've done for different projects, but they encompass some of those questions. We can kind of go back and look at those results.
Yeah, I mean, I
You know,
think
I mean, I'm
that's
happy to do that.
worth visiting. And it might be doing more, sir. I mean, we have SurveyMonkey, so we can
Right.
design our own surveys. I will, like I mentioned during the 2 Washington Street, that surprised me. Not the concern from direct neighbors, but just the distance from which people are concerned, and, concerns about traffic and noise and whatnot, that, like, it's always been like, oh, Route 1's where development should go. And has that changed? Is it only a small segment? So I think it is also time to evaluate, I don't think Foxborough wants to grow. I mean, I could be wrong, but based on all the housing work we've done, I think the message was very clear that Foxborough doesn't want to grow much at all. And I don't know if they want to grow much at all commercially, so that's.
So where?
Yeah, if so, where? I think the Schneider thing is a huge question. That's a challenge because I know Schneider isn't yet willing to talk about it. But, I've been saying all along that fills me as a planner with fear because, like, how long do you wait? And then so long as Schneider understands that then there's going to be a whole discussion and process the town needs to go through, and that could take some time. So, like, they might decide, what if, and John Eve is not here, so it feels a little unfair discussing it, but, if they suddenly are ready January 1 and they want to put it on the market, and they come to the town and say, well, what is the town? Like, the town is nowhere poised, ready, and the zoning out there is general industrial. And, I mean, I can't remember the uses, but they are high-intensity industrial uses. And,
Not stuff people are gonna want right there.
no, and the thing is, if you go to change zoning, they can just file a plan to freeze zoning for 8 years. So there's a strategic component, and a discussion. So hopefully that everybody's on the same table, at the same table about how we're gonna move forward. But, like, we're waiting a long time, and, as a planner, it's a challenge because that's a big deal over there, and no one knows what's gonna happen, and then the whole MBTA communities thing, we're waiting for those guidelines to come out. I think we all kind of know in the gut how we feel about it, but, that's being forced upon the community to discuss, and so, like, how do we want to handle that? So I think there are a lot of, and that's not necessarily economic development, but it is, when you're talking 768, zoning to permit 768 multifamily units at a density of 15 units per acre, I mean, that's community changing possibly. So, and then if the town votes not to do it, that's fine, but it does have a trickle-down effect on grants. And so it's just like understanding, I think there's a lot of those conversations. So I think while the master plan is helpful, there's definitely a
Old
need
now, though.
for, the casino was the big issue in the master
Right,
plan.
it's so
So it's
old.
like, where are we today, and, it's a different world kind of. So I do think there's some discussions to be had.
Is that being considered for 2023 budget, for even looking at that,
I haven't proposed it yet, but
What?
the master
Master
plan.
plan.
plan of-
Yeah, this budget, no, I mean, but next budget, we should probably have to start looking at it, because it was 2015, so we're coming up,
Right.
you know, on it. And I mean, it was really expensive the first time you did it, several $100,000.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
But this is more an update,
This would be
right?
more an
Like,
update,
We
right.
updated the open space
But
plan,
everything
so it's
is-
not as, I mean, I know, but.
Everything is really expensive and really competitive right now. Maybe the economy's changing, so I don't know where the consulting world will be, but right now, consultants are so darn busy that they're not gonna do
Right.
anything on the cheap. So it's just, you know, we should plan for it, I guess.
Seth, if you wanted to help me, we could take a stab at a survey, an EDC survey,
Yeah.
if the board wanted, just to get the overall pulse of the community on all those range of topics you brought up. I mean, what could it hurt, right? I don't know.
Just
I
have to
yeah, I
make
think
sure
community input is going to be critical for big,
the right number
decision,
and
that.
significant, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if nobody responds, that's telling in and of itself, you know? I mean, right?
Yeah,
We'll
I
just
think
put a rotary question in there. We'll
Exactly.
We'll get a
Put
lot
something
of
about the
response.
common and we'll get a lot of response.
You're right.
I mean, we could take a stab at kind of trying to come up with some questions and see what we want to do.
I still see questions, people saying, what's going on with the old fire station? What's
Exactly.
going in there?
I know,
That's right.
I know.
What's going in there?
Well, and it's interesting, and again, this goes to, I think we've all talked about it in different forums, it's so challenging to disseminate information. I mean, the reason that
Right.
these projects were allowed uptown, that some people are outraged by, or, you know, how did this happen, was zoning that was passed in 2013 by town meeting. And I think a lot of people don't even know that was voted at town meeting, they don't remember the discussion, and so like, that just goes to show that, you know, a segment voted, and then there's a segment that isn't even aware, and so,
You got 7,000 people who live here and 100 in the,
17,
Right,
18,000.
17,000,
Right,
sorry.
and
you got
167 if we're lucky.
167 people voting.
So that's a big challenge too, I mean, even maybe in this survey is how do we disseminate and receive information?
Right.
You know, it is, and I don't know that we're gonna solve it, but like, what's the way to reach people? And, you know, is there a way to get folks to register their emails or something? Because it's, you know, the reporter isn't the same as what it used to be circulation-wise, and, you know, Facebook, it's fragmented, and there's just very hard to get a finger on a pulse, you know, so.
You have to do a TikTok.
people got to meet us halfway too, Paige. I mean, people need to want to know. And so that's part of the challenge is we can put it everywhere, but people got to want to look for it too.
It's true.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, people don't even know about town meeting, honestly, you know,
I know.
so. But again, we're not alone. I mean, I think every community, every entity is going through similar challenges, so, but we can do our best and certainly try to engage. I would be fascinated to hear the thing. And then if anybody has any suggestions on the Schneider, you know, approach,
Well, I think Bill Keegan had said that he would be initiating some discussions,
yeah, they're not ready.
so. There's really not anything else.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so any other questions or comments? No? Well, thanks, everybody. I appreciate you coming.
Great.
Have a great
you.
summer. We'll talk soon. We'll send out that information on the, from the grid, so we can see all those projects that were out there. And,
So when are you thinking for the next meeting, Lorraine? Is it like
so
September-ish?
September. We'll go
Unless
for-
something comes up
Yeah.
in the
Third
meantime?
week of September. Yeah, if something big comes up, we can get together, but we'll aim for that. Okay. Great.
Do we need to, we need
Motion
to
to, motion to adjourn,
Yeah.
anybody?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Night.